And with that, Madam Chair, I see we do have a quorum present now, so you can call the meeting to order and proceed through the agenda as it was sent out to you. Did everybody receive the agenda? I hope it was sent last week or last night, actually. Thank you.
Well,
Madam Chair.
fantastic. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. I will take a motion and a second, and then we'll open discussion. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Kristen. And a second?
I second it.
Thank you. I'm not sure who that is. I can't see everyone
Fred.
on my screen. Oh, thank you, Fred. Is there any discussion on the agenda today? Hearing none. Are we taking roll call?
We do have to take roll call on a virtual meeting.
Great. So we'll take roll call.
Cheyenne.
Hello, good morning, Cheyenne St. John, Lower Sioux Tipple, present.
Okay, are you voting in favor of the motion to accept the agenda?
Yes, I accept the agenda.
Thank you. Christina Woods.
Yay.
Kristen Macholm.
Yay. Yay.
Christina Chang.
Yay.
Fred Summers.
Yes.
And that's all that I have present. The motion passes. Oh, did I miss somebody?
Geeta's still here.
Oh, Geeta, I'm sorry.
I came
Geeta.
back. I just did my video. Thank you.
She's hopping in and out today.
You checked in, that counts.
My daughter got, I'm really sorry. My daughter has diagnosed with COVID yesterday. It kind of threw a wrench in our day, so she's not feeling that great. But
well,
I think I'm back now.
Okay, we're glad you're here. Okay, well then we will move on to approval of the minutes. We'll do the same, we'll use the same process. I'll take a motion and a second, and then we'll have discussion. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of, what's the date on that, Victor? It was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. That was January 11th, 2020. I believe. Let me double check that.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Oh, pardon me, January 13th.
Okay.
So much more recently.
Okay, of 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes and a second, and then we'll open discussion?
Fred Summers, I so move.
Second?
Cheyenne St. John, second.
Thank you to the both of you. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, let's take roll call. Oh, did you have something, Vic?
I just wanted to add that that was mainly an online meeting. It was a rare pre-COVID online meeting. There was only a few people who were physically present because the only item on the agenda was to approve the notice in the state register. So not much to travel and to come to town for. I'll call the roll. Cheyenne St. John.
Approve.
Thank you. Christina Woods.
Yay.
Christina Chang.
Yay.
Fred Summers.
Yay.
Geeta Gay.
Yay.
Yes, I'm here.
Yep. I got you, Fred. And then Geeta.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kristen Macholm, yes, too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Went right past you. You're gonna give me my sea legs again, folks.
Vic, you're not retired yet.
I better soon. I'm telling you. You've spilled the beans on me, so.
Oh, sorry. Did we get everyone?
Yeah, that's everyone. And so you can proceed, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to the consideration of proposals submitted. And I think it was Fred that brought up, we had a lot and we weren't sure maybe which ones actually qualified or didn't qualify. I guess I'm not sure the best way to proceed. Is the goal to actually select the bodies of work today?
I don't think so, mainly because it's been so long and the process is new and we're all kind of rusty and rusty and wounded from the last 2 years. And I think there's just we need to get back into it and just looking at the number of people who have been using the evaluation process, I think there's some tentativeness that I'm hoping that we can settle with this committee, with this meeting today, and to get people, looking at the proposals and maybe reacquainting themselves with the reasons that we had the evaluation process that we did establish. So
there were a couple proposals that I noticed that didn't have any images at all. And so I'm assuming we'll move past those and maybe let artists know that we would really like some images to keep considering them for future projects.
And I did contact in some cases there were images that were on dead links, and I contacted every one of them and asked them to resubmit. And I did hear back from about 2/3 of the ones who I did contact. But I have not heard from 2 or 3 others, and so that's what we have. Nearly, if you go back and look at that list in Dropbox, you'll see that most of them have in notation that it's been updated, and that's not surprising at all, given the amount of time that has passed.
Christina,
Okay. Yeah.
I want to tell you that there were some single painting and 2 painting presentations that had my heart so much I wanted to contact people because I knew they wouldn't be in. And your idea of having a show in another space is really, really good.
Yeah, maybe with our new members, we can talk a little bit about where we are right now and what is legislated for us to work on. But Kristen, I saw your hand go up, and I'm sorry, other members, I can't see you on camera. So if you have something that you'd like to share or say and I miss you, just hop in. You do not need to ask permission in this meeting for me to have the floor. So Kristen, your hand was up.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Kristen Macomb. I just think that the idea of sufficiently sized was really unclear to people. I mean, the wording there, I think, it just wasn't clear to people. And so that was unfortunate. Also, when you offer performance to individuals, then how do you sufficiently size a performance to an ongoing gallery space? And there's just a lot of ambiguity there that I don't think people knew how to manage. So I would say that we shouldn't throw out. I mean, I was actually, as was the former speaker, impressed with some individual works, and it would be great if there could be, we could find places for those and I think it's really important. I am unclear about all the different spaces. I know we're only talking about the gallery at this point, but I think it's important for us to see the context of what other spaces are available so we can understand that some of these outstanding works might have a place someplace else. someone, okay. Yeah, so that's all I would have to say about that. Can we do that, Christina, Madam Chairwoman?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the other spaces that are legislated to this group. And if, you know, for the sake of the gallery, I think we can start there, but I don't want anything thrown out. I want to preserve what we have, and maybe this gets us into using some of these other spaces that are given to us to oversee, and even have some of those performances actually come to fruition in them. So I was excited to see the diversity of work and it being both visual and performative, spoken word. I was really excited about that because it kind of pushes us a little bit to not sit on our laurels with just this one beautiful gallery space, and makes us it makes us work on these other areas, which I think have so much value. And maybe at some point we can all meet and take that tour again. That was really great. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the spaces, and maybe that's an Aaron conversation or a Victor conversation.
Bear with me, maybe go on to the next person who has a question. I'm pulling that up, and then those other spaces, because
I think Aaron,
and off the top
Aaron
of my head,
hop in.
and off the top of my head, there were several, the space under the rotunda, and the corridors around that space in the basement, and also the tunnels leading to the state office building and to the Senate building are some of the chief places. And there were some other smaller areas, but including conference rooms that are on the third floor east end of the Capitol.
Madam Chair, on the third floor outside of the gallery space, and I think for everybody's benefit, in the coming months, we should get everybody over there to do a tour. I do think that that would be useful as we begin this work again. There are 4 other spaces on the third floor gallery or east wing. There's a large room that's sort of a public landing space that is probably about the same size as the gallery is, slightly different shape to it and feel to it, but pretty good size. There are 2 small meeting rooms. So there are meeting rooms that fit about 10 or 12 people in the northeast and southeast corners of that wing. And then on the north side of the third floor east wing is a large conference room that is actually probably bigger than the gallery and the public landing spaces combined. Right now there is art in each of those spaces, but things that could be transitioned certainly. Like for instance, in the public landing space, there are pictures that children have drawn about water, which obviously is an important subject. It was something that happened like in 2018. There's a contest related to water and children, submitting pictures, and so those are framed. And so that is an example of something that we could swap out. And then on the basement level, as Vic was saying, there is what we call the vault space and the space sort of around the vault. There is an exhibit, a professional photography exhibit there of the people who built the Capitol building. Certainly worth looking at, and that's been there since the Capitol opened. There are a couple of other spaces closer to the cafeteria where there are other exhibits that are posted. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think that the major challenge around space has been that there's a cost to implementing that, and we've sort of focused on the gallery space because absent art, the gallery is like literally empty. There's like 2 benches. So in an effort to, make sure that that space is filled, and because we don't really have budget, we focused on that space, but there is the potential to do more, certainly.
We just had somebody join us, but I cannot see a name.
It is a phone number.
Hi, this is Merritt Clapp Smith from the CAP board. Having some a storm and power going on and off here, so I'm calling in.
Hi, Merritt.
Hi there.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, could I jump in here for a second? This is David Kelleher from the Minnesota Historical Society, and I just wanted to introduce my colleague Cecily Marcus, who has not had a chance to introduce herself yet. We, along with admin and CAP board, are ex officio members and have one appointee. So I just wanted to introduce Cecily.
And
Once
the doorbell just rang, so my dog is barking. I apologize. I'm Cecily Marcus. I'm Director of Collections at the Minnesota Historical Society since September. I'm very glad to be here and to learn about the work that you're doing and to support it however we can.
And I'm really glad that I'm not at home today because my dog would start barking upon hearing your dog barking. I've had that happen in several calls. So thank you for the interruption.
Thank you for the introduction. It's nice to have you with us, Cecily. I'm seeing a couple comments in the chat. One from Alice Roberts Davis and one from Sue Jens. Let's see, from Alice, maybe I don't quite understand, but we're already curating. If there are several pieces of individual art that are outstanding, we couldn't exhibit them together. Do we want to talk about that?
Hi, it's Commissioner Roberts Davis from the Department of Administration. Good morning, everyone. That comment goes back to an earlier remark that I made about the discussion that we were having about individual artwork pieces that we saw that we enjoyed and wondering if there were places in the Capitol that we could display them individually. And my thought was that could we display them collectively in the gallery? And there was a comment that that would mean that that would be additional curation and another element of decision making. And my thought was that we're already doing the curation work. What I don't understand, and I don't know a lot about art or curation. I actually don't know anything about curation. So my thought was just that if there are several outstanding pieces, could we not just exhibit them together? And so I was hoping that somebody could educate me on that. So, and that's not a conversation that we have to have today, but just something that I wanted to put in the parking lot on thoughts.
Well, I can respond to that since I responded in the chat. Or Christina is also a wonderful curator, Christina Chang, either both of you, you know. But the idea, if we decide to put together a series of single works in the gallery, it's not just the single works, it's how they speak with each other and how they react one against each other. We're making a decision to juxtapose works that are could be very different, and putting together a group of artworks in a gallery is curating something as a whole. It just happens. You can't put single works and just have them read separately. There is a, something is being created that way when we make that decision. And so I think it's a little bit, I mean, I'm not saying we couldn't do that. I will be honest with you. I think 2 videos in there on separate sides of the gallery could be really powerful, of the 2 videos that I saw. But that's a decision, a curatorial decision that we're making to juxtapose works that are different, and that would need to be okayed by the artists, and it would need to be okayed by this committee. So that's just one idea. I don't know. Other curators here can chime in if they think that's not correct.
I'm going to hop in, and this is a great topic to talk about, because what we're doing right now as an advisory board is not really curating as much as it is being a panel selecting bodies of work that are already presented together. And so when we start curating individual pieces of art, we really run the risk in losing the important messaging, especially if it's art by BIPOC artists. We lose their their statement within their artwork when we start setting them alongside other pieces of work that maybe weren't meant to be shown with them. And we would actually need permission from the artist to do that, because we're now interfering with an artist's ideology of their own work, and they would need to be involved in the process to okay that their artwork is lined up next to another piece of artwork, so that we're not just making those curatorial choices. And that's really a big issue in museums, where a lot of museums are moving away from this, because we're losing and we're overriding artistic ideology with the ideology of a curator. So we have to be really careful about what curating is and what our work as a panel is. And really at this point, for that gallery space, our work is to really operate as a panel, selecting bodies of work that are ready for that particular space. Now, if Erin had mentioned that there were some spaces outside of the that may be really appropriate for highlighting a singular piece of art. And I would like our group to consider expanding what we're doing to the other areas, even if it is all on the 3rd floor and we just want to focus on that for now. But expanding that visual art opportunity outside of the gallery and our other spaces, so that we're giving the artist what they want by a submission of one piece of art. That was 2 things, or maybe 3. So Commissioner Davis, that's the difference between curating and what we're doing. So I don't want to lose those single pieces. I actually hope that as a committee and advisory board that we can grow what we're doing and do that pretty easily. So I'm hoping.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I see that Geeta has her hand up, and so does David, but his might just still be up.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Geeta.
Yeah, I was just going to quick chime in about that, because from an artist perspective, to just give that perspective, that usually there would be a call for art around a theme or something from a gallery or a museum, that then they would ask artists to submit a piece specifically for a curated theme, but then the artist knows what they're getting into, or might even have a specific artwork that they've chosen to apply to something like that. I just wanted to give that other side of it, because I think artists would be, on this one, they put their artwork in thinking it would go into a solo show, although I find it odd that there's quite a few that don't have very many artworks. Like if in the call it said how much wall space was required of the artist before they submitted their artworks, because, and if they were just, maybe they just don't have enough artwork, so then those could be removed initially. And then I think that was all. I really like the idea of, and this is separate, but having a tour, and I'll take the virtual tour online as soon as I can. Thank you.
Hello, this is Mary back again. Would I be able to make that comment since I can't raise my hand or anything?
Yep, absolutely. Yes. Just anybody can
Hi
just
there.
hop. It's hard to see everyone's hands anyway.
Yeah, sorry about that. If there's a way to raise my hand on the phone, let me know. It seems that this solicitation was based on the premise of having a single artist with a larger collection selected. And so it seems important to me to follow through with that in this case. But for the future, I just want to pitch for the notion of having collections of different artists' works around a central theme. And the reason for that is, really digging into the commemorative works discussions and the input that was received during that process. The big theme was representing the diversity of Minnesota and its people. And it seems like collections of works around a central theme are a really excellent way to do that, because all sorts of different people and their perspectives can be reflected in the art. And as a viewer, it's very to see that diversity as well. So when I looked at the works, I noticed themes, landscape, animals, people. I think there could be some really interesting ones put out there. So I would just encourage this group to maybe think about that idea for the future, where we'd solicit around a theme and let people know that we would be doing a collection. And then the curation obviously would be, you know, the premise of it would be that it's a collection and a diversity of perspectives on the theme. Thanks, that's it.
So just to put a couple notes on Merritt's comments, if the group does decide to do a call for art on a theme, I would hope that we would select a time on the calendar that we would have that available for exhibition, and not just have it be an open call all year. And then it's a lot of work. We would be asking this advisory group to do a lot of work to put that together. And there's, I mean, others can speak more about this than I can, but I would just make sure to note that if that is something the group wants to do, we should determine a timeline or a bookend of dates. So how long that exhibition would be on view, so that artists would have time to maybe create something, or know how long their art would be part of a group, what would be called a group show. Victor, I have a question about the spreadsheet of artists that you sent that has the list of, it has some redacted information on it. I'm wondering if that could be, if there could be another column that would indicate or help organize it, so all of the artists' works that would be ready for the gallery could be moved to the top, so we would know where the bulk of our work.
Yes, that's an easy sort to do. And if the committee would like to choose a minimum number of works, we could cut down that list as well if you'd like.
So it looks like we have, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but we do have a few categories. It was another doc that you had sent where there were maybe 24 to 50 pieces. Well, I don't remember what the category quantities were in that document. And thank you for putting that together as well, Vic.
Oh, it's one of those things that kept me up all night.
That helped. That I feel like that makes our work a little easier when we know which proposals fall in those quantity categories.
Yeah, I had one document was sorted by type, and the other one was sorted by quantity. And find that quantity one here.
And Vic, is that something that when you find it, you could pull it up and share? Is that helpful?
Yes, I can. Let me just I got lots of windows here, so.
I can see on this spreadsheet that if it's sorted in column J, then we can get those proposals that are ready for the gallery moved up to the top.
Let me just do that now, and I'll share my screen. How's that?
Okay, that'd be great. So I know we're going to have another meeting and we're going to go through proposals and evaluations at that time. I also think it's a good idea to have on the agenda a time to talk about like what Kristen had brought up with having 2 videos in one space. So I think we can expand our conversation on a couple of different fronts at that time. Because we'll all put the work in on the evaluation sheets and then we'll be able to determine, where we're at with the bodies of work that are evaluated. Okay, so are we sharing?
Yes, I'm about to right now, so.
Okay.
Okay, are you able to see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on the right-hand side, it says number of works, and then it's the high number is 65, and then it goes down from there, and then the entry number is on the far left.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So I think the bulk of our work will be with the quantities through what particular number? Should we decide as a group what makes sense?
I mean, it really does depend on the size of the works as well. So I would be uncomfortable just kind of arbitrarily picking a number that seems not large enough to fill a gallery, but maybe if there's some guidance that obviously the higher numbers are going to have more than enough works to probably fill the galleries, and the lower numbers, maybe you don't have to be as comprehensive in your evaluation of the work. But I think they should all be assessed. Like, I don't think there should be kind of like we're not even going to look at these because they don't hit a certain number personally.
I just have a question. Did the call for art say a number or not? Just not, it didn't say how many. Okay.
No, it said
Yeah,
that it should be sufficient to, I don't think we used to use the word fill, but that's what it meant to say.
Oh, sufficient, right. Okay, that was that. Okay. Yeah, I agree that to look at them and look at the size, like the way Kristen said, because they could be really big and then they would fit.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like we should have a trip to see the space so that, or at least our newest folks. So at the very least, we have an idea of the gallery space and what size works in that space, because I believe there's some is there wainscoting on the wall, or are they flat all the way to the floor? I don't remember.
It's
Go ahead, Wayne, or Vic.
It is mostly flat, but there is some woodwork that is underneath the windows and so forth. I posted in the chat, and I'm going to go pick this image off of the. I posted in the chat a link to the all the spaces in the Capitol that include the gallery space, and it includes the dimensions for that, and so that's short of seeing it in person, it gives you a idea of the space that's available to display. And I can share that screen if you'd like me to.
So it sounds like there's no easy answer to both Fred, Kristen, and Christina's comments about, where do we put our energy? Simply because, size in this particular space does matter, and large pieces, will obviously require, less quantity than smaller pieces. So I'm just hearing that there's no easy answer.
There actually are some proposals in this list of 55, which I've gone through, that are definitely could fit the space. That are ones that if we reviewed them all, or if we did some kind of review of those ones, that we may be able to make some choices. At least, I mean, we could start by making a few choices with what we've been offered in terms of filling the space with individual proposals.
And to that end, I think, I believe I'd be able to share my screen if you wanted to choose pick a particular proposal to look at. I could display it, share my screen and share that with everyone.
I could give an example. I don't want to lead this by any stretch of the imagination, but, of 55, I picked out, several that I think would be really great as a group. So, whichever way the group feels best to proceed.
I do, off the top of my head, I do want to share with the group that there was one particular proposal that was submitted with images of Indigenous people and people from Asian culture. And I just want to make sure that folks understand that there is a need for permission, especially under the American Indian Law Act or Indian Arts and Crafts Act, that if you are photographing Native people, that you need to have permission to put their regalia on camera, even if it is just of their back. So I'd want to make sure that I don't remember which proposal it was, but you'll see a photograph of a fancy dancer from behind, that it is required by federal law to have permission from that Indigenous person to be photographed and have used in another person's art exhibition. So just be aware of that 1990 American Indian Arts and Crafts Act.
Thank you. I would just say, to respond to what Kristen said, because I have only peeked at a few, that if we have time to just hear Kristen's top, since she did look through all of them, sounds like that would be helpful because it would just steer us. I mean, I intend to look at all of them, but if other people agree, I would be fine with that.
I have a list too, but I'd actually like us all to go through it on our own before we steer anyone, because I feel that's really important to not be swayed. And I think it's important as committee members to have full access to what we each bring to the table. So I don't want to influence anyone, and I know I can maybe speak for Kristen that, that's not our job on this panel, is to influence anybody. And we especially want the public to know that as well. I mean, we have at least 3 professional curators on this committee, and I think it's really important that we not be empowered any more than anyone else.
Thank you. I think that sounds good.
I think
Merritt, it's a little hard to hear you. You're breaking up. Well, Merritt, feel free to hop in anytime, even if we're onto a different topic, because I'm going to kind of swing this conversation to our next steps, but don't let that stop you once you reconnect to hop in with what you want to share. Next steps for us. I guess one of the questions is, do we review everything? And setting up another meeting, how much time do y'all want to go through the proposals and use the evaluation sheet? And is there anything on the evaluation sheet that we should go over that might not be clear? So 4 things. Do we want to pull up the evaluation sheet and maybe start there?
I think that's a really good idea. Oh, Christina, sorry, you're talking.
No, I'm not.
Question.
Christina Chang was talking, but she was muted.
Oh, sorry. It was about the evaluation forms. So I actually submitted them because I thought that was what we were supposed to do before the meeting today. So if I were to submit them again, would that like overwrite, or would that be a duplicate? What would happen?
I think the thing to do here, and I'm going to share this screen too, if it's okay. Then that way I can walk y'all through that. Pop this up. Where are we here?
So Christina, did you go through them all? I did too. I thought that's what we were supposed to do for today. So I went through them all, but I didn't do any of the, I only did a handful of evaluation sheets because I was unclear whether we were supposed to do them or not. So anyway, I'm done. Just if this matters for our timing, I'm done.
Okay, so I'm just going to open up this form, and this is the one I used to edit it. And on the bottom, and to answer Christina's question, if you're resubmitting one, I would just make note of on the bottom here with the evaluators' comments. And so if you wanted to resubmit them, since I know that you've already, they all come to me, so I can see which ones came in on what date at what time, and then if you do a redo of some of them or all of them, then you can just make note of that. Just say do over or whatever you'd like to say, and I can make note of that for scoring purposes, or however you want to evaluate them. As long as we're on this page, any other questions about the form?
Or questions about what we are evaluating. So Victor, if you can scroll down a little bit.
Sure.
So like proposed artwork is hard for me to read. Authentic or original. Like, do you have any questions on these topic areas? Maybe we should just go through them one by one since we do have a little bit of time here in our meeting.
Okay. Well, the first main area is artistic quality of the work. And is it authentic or original? Does it involve technical skill? Does it reflect the artist's artistic vision or voice? Does it provoke emotion, intellectual inquiry, or other response from an audience? And you may recall, members who were here 2 years ago may recall that this was all discussed quite at some length in committee meetings in 2019. The second area is engagement, and that the exhibition provides an artistic experience that is both engaging and enriching, that it's relative to Minnesota residents, that it highlights Minnesota stories that are not often shared in the Capitol. And I think what we meant there was the built art that was there in place in 1905 when the Capitol opened. And finally, in that section, content spotlights Minnesota residents or groups not often featured at the Capitol. So, and then this final section was kind of an admin only area, but it's important just logistically. Is the work ready to be displayed? Is it actually available, or available when it would be scheduled? Is the cost to install it and deinstall it feasible? And then finally, is the time frame that the work available one that works with the Capitol? So those are three areas that as an agency that we would have to look at in terms of whether it works for us, in other words. And then finally, at the bottom, our evaluator comments, if you wanted to add a note or an insight about a particular proposal. And
these are public, right?
These are what?
Public.
Yes, once they're made and acted on, then they are public data, and they must be retained, I believe, in this case, for 2 years. So they are. So do keep that in mind when you're making a comment that it's something that public has access to, and so there's no private comments here. They're very public comments when you make them.
If
Christina
said a different
Chang
way,
has- Oh, sorry.
I just want to
Erin.
be like really clear. Don't put anything in the evaluation comments that you would not be comfortable having in the newspaper or in some sort of news story about this. So obviously it's there for you to add context, but do be judicious.
Christina Chang, your hand is up. I can see that.
Great, thank you. So for because I thought we had to do the evaluation forms in advance of this meeting, I kind of interpreted some of these categories as I was going through them. And it seemed like, especially the first one, the first question regarding artistic quality of the work and exhibition, I feel like authentic versus original are like two very different things. And so there were obviously artwork submitted by individuals who had no formal training that I would count as having a very high value of authenticity. Perhaps not originality though. And so when I was going through it, I gave it a high mark, but then you would, like I gave it a good, like a 5, but then work submitted involves technical skill would be a little, and so are we given some, I guess, license in interpreting these categories when we're evaluating the works?
I'll hop in. I would say yes, and the works will be scored. And so not every piece is going to get a best score, all the way down the columns. So there's a reason that we have folks on this panel that are not curators, right? So there is some room for interpretation here because, art is not only interpreted by curators. And so you're here for a reason, Christina, and so are others who are not curators. And the form was designed for each of us to come at this with our own eyes on visual work. So it's meant to be interpretive, yes. Kristen, your hand is up. I can see your hand.
Yeah. So, just a question about these evaluation forms again. I didn't realize that maybe I wrote some stuff that I guess shouldn't be public. Now I'm rethinking some of that. So, can I, Vic, can I take those back? I did stuff without understanding the whole context of this. Okay, so can I get those back, or can I resubmit a new one that would overturn the first one? And B, I'm still unclear, are we supposed to do evaluation forms for every single piece? Because, I mean, for everybody who submitted, I think it's fair that they know how they measured up in this process.
I for one did not anticipate that that everybody would fill out an evaluation for every single entry, simply because some may not have been qualified. The committee obviously can decide that differently. I did, however, put in a entry at the very top of the form that says that the form is considered public data, and that when submitted, the form will be archived by the department for the period that statute applies to. But it's yes, these are public documents once they are submitted. But however, you may substitute.
Thank you. That's my biggest question.
You may substitute your proposal if you like.
Thank you. Okay.
Your evaluation, if you like. I'm sorry.
Great.
This is Fred. May I make a comment? In judging international shows with maybe 1,500 pieces, there often are a jury that edit, and I'm just sharing, and I'm ideating right now. They edit down to say 200, and then 200 are chosen. And then there are specific forms, and you share why these pieces were chosen, and it edits the choosing process down. But I think I hear a different thought here in having everything written about, and certainly our comments and mine personally. There were some single painting pieces that were just profound, and I wanted to contact the artist because I didn't think there'd be any hope for them, but their work was so outstanding, to encourage them. But
well, I
want to
reiterate that there is hope. I mean, we have other spaces, and we can keep this collection of submissions. And honestly, it's been 2 years, and that's why we have 56 submissions right now. I don't anticipate that this advisory board will be dealing with 56 submissions all the time. So I would encourage folks to go through and find a process that works for you. But I don't want to discount any of the submissions because of space. I think we can maybe work in stages, and maybe we say the individual submissions will be scored after we figure out the gallery, and then we come back to these submissions and work on the individual pieces to figure out where those may fit in the capital outside of the gallery. So I don't want anyone to leave thinking anybody's going to be left out of the process, but I feel we have an opportunity here to divvy up the work a little bit and maybe work on scoring the submissions that are gallery ready, based on number of pieces and size, so we can fill that gallery, but maybe come back to the other groupings and score those in particular for individual spaces that would accommodate individual artwork. Christina Chang, your hand is up.
Yes, and just having gone through all of them, and I'm sensing kind of maybe an apprehension at the volume and having to do an evaluation for each. And maybe my process is incorrect, but at least it didn't take me very long once I kind of figured out how I wanted to use the evaluation sheet. And I definitely did not write like an essay about each work in the comment section. I really only wrote like questions I had that might clarify the proposal. Like there was one submission where I wasn't sure whether the art was being made by the individuals who were being served at a center for people with disabilities, or if the art was created by the artists who led activities for those individuals. And that seemed like it would be a relevant fact in determining whether the sort of one of the criteria is whether it reflects the diversity of citizens in the state. And so like I didn't really write an essay for each evaluation as I was going through it. Like it was really just clicking, on the scale for 8 criteria. And it went fairly quickly once I got into a rhythm.
I have a question if no one else was going to say.
Oh, Geeta's hand is up. Sure, go ahead.
My question was, because I'm new, so just to ask a little background. So originally, was it supposed to be that we do these forms before we meet, so then these forms are actually tabulated before our meeting, and then some kind of rise to the top through the forms themselves? Or were we looking at the applications and then doing the forms and then just still coming together with conversation without the forms involved? Because I'm just wondering if it makes sense to, like, from my perspective, what I would do is look through all the applications and then kind of keep my top number that I would want to detail out into these forms. But then were we supposed to have casual conversation, or was there like data collected from these forms first and then we come together and say, these are the ones that rose to the top, let's start here? I'm just wondering, was there any like step by step like that?
Do you want to tackle that one, Victor?
Yeah, and I think that was spelled out in the evaluation process. It stated that let me bear with me a moment. Let me find that one here.
Keep track of that. And
I'm gonna get out of this site here.
And maybe my question is just, were the forms part of our process, or are they for that public element that will be kept as a record of our evaluation process for the public or other people to access? Or was it supposed to help us kind of keep moving along? And I'm sorry if I didn't read in the email that it was already there.
Madam Chair, do you mind if I jump in?
Sure. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, I think it's both, Geeta. I think it's meant to help narrow and help this group identify who, maybe the front runners might be. But we've also put out a formal request for proposals, and that means that this group does need to evaluate it. And we need to be prepared we're not procuring something in a formal sense. There's not an exchange of money that's happening here. But we do need to be able to defend the choices that we've made, potentially to artists not selected, or to legislators, or to the public or the news media. So one of the things that this group needs to consider is, if not these forms, then how do we sort of articulate that we've had a thoughtful process about selecting who the front runners are. So I think that's, I'd urge you to keep in mind the two things is, yes, both to narrow and make selections, but also we need to be able to defend those choices in sort of a objective way.
Oh, thank you, Erin. So in that respect, I do see the value of going with these forms instead of trying to come up with a new way. And then for artists who don't make the cut for the deeper conversation, that those forms are still available to them to see what they can do to create a better application if they want to apply in the future. And so in that way, I'll just go with what Christina Chang mentioned about really just going through every artist with a form. And if everyone, I think that makes the most sense now. Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to call your attention to the screen I'm sharing. This is from our evaluation process that was adopted back in 2019. And as an aid to evaluation, members will be provided with an informal score sheet that will allow them to check off the elements of the proposal that meet statutory requirements, and adopted additional criteria, review criteria, to evaluate the strength of proposals and the appropriateness for the capital exhibition program. And then we list those things that are in the form. And so, but I think the key word to this was informal, even though it's data that we didn't, and this was discussed, that we didn't talk about just, okay, this one got the highest number, so that's the one that we're going to forward to the Capital Preservation Commission. It was a guide to decision making, and not a formalized process. And then I wanted to point out that that was something that we had discussed back in 2019.
And if I recall that conversation, the reason we use the word informal is because we do want to meet and talk about the proposals. So if the score sheet was formal, then that might imply that the conversation ends there, and we didn't want to do that.
And then the last section of this document talks about of course, all this happened before COVID, right? So, but it says we'll meet in a public meeting to discuss and vote on art exhibits that'll be sent to the Capital Preservation Commission. And then recommendations will be made following Robert's Rules of Order, where a motion is made on proposals and discussed and voted upon. So that's the process that the committee had adopted in 2019.
Kristen, your hand is up.
It is. Thank you, Madam Woman. And I just want to say that I think these evaluation forms should be either formal or informal, like meaning, you know, either we use them to give feedback to all of these applicants, as Christina Chang did suggest, the idea that this is an opportunity for feedback, and in a more formal process. And it's not, none of it indicates a final decision, but it is a process. It is by a way in which we indicate our process that it was fair-minded going forward. Or if it's going to be simply an informal way for us to manage how we're going to see all these different applicants, and is a tool for us to use to discuss with them and amongst each other at our next meeting, then they shouldn't be submitted. That's my feel. I mean, it's like, then they shouldn't be a submitted thing. Some submitted, some not. I think that there's a inconsistency there that I'd like to get a better idea of which way we're going to go with these evaluation forms, rather than just whatever we feel is the right way to do this individually. Because once they're submitted, as you say, Vic, they're part of the record.
This is
So-
Fred. May I make a comment?
Yes, and then I see Gita's hand up again.
Okay.
So Fred, go ahead, and then Gita.
Oh, I was at these meetings, but I'm not clear today, and I really agree with some of the things that are being spoken. I value the informal dialogue together, that we can talk, because I think we give each other thoughts and ideas that we've not had, being individual here and trying to evaluate the entire thing, that change and help us make a final choice. So I value the dialogue with each other and I didn't see, was that going to happen with what these 55 or were we just going to all submit an evaluation and hand it in that's formal and going to go public? So am I making myself clear? I see these two parts here really important.
You are, Fred, and we will come together to discuss them. Because if we don't, these forms, the one thing that informal form doesn't do is it doesn't parse out bias. And so we need to have those conversations to really parse out any of our own implicit bias in the process. And so conversations will help do that. I'm going to have Gita hop in because she has her hand up here.
Thank you, Christine. I was just going to say to what Kristen said, that it was now my understanding from my last question that all the forms should be filled out. However deeply or how much time you want to spend with each form, depending on your opinion of the art, then you do submit a form that's made public to the artists as a courtesy to them for putting in their application. They should receive a form from everybody, and they could possibly be given notes, but since the meetings are recorded and public, that's also possible to give them the time when they were talked about, if that comes up as a thing. I think that could be an important feedback for an artist to be able to hear the actual conversation. I've had the Arts Board give me the recorded conversation, and that's super helpful. And then I was just going to say that for my, well, that's what I was thinking I needed to do for the next meeting, was to fill out the forms. And I think it would be great if Aaron, if somebody thinks that it would be possible to do a data sweep of those forms and provide the team with the top or some that people had agreed on, and that could be a starting point. I don't know if that was part of what was going to happen. And then we would also have, people might have their favorite or specific artists they felt were very important to look at. And if those artists didn't make that special grade based on the forms, those would be brought to the conversation.
Right.
Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and that is definitely the process, is that we talk about so that is it. I wanted to hop in and ask the group if it made sense that we forego evaluating the proposals that have only one piece in them and save that for another meeting, and evaluate the submissions that have more than one piece, so that we can be talking about proposals that will fill the gallery for right now, because we do have other spaces, and I think we can maybe divide this work up into the third floor gallery versus hanging individual pieces in other legislative spaces. What does the group think about that as part of the process?
I'm fine with that. I don't see that one artwork would be sufficient to fill the gallery, and that was the language, so.
I'll just say, I'd rather review the whole list right now and determine if there's even a single artwork, as we've heard, someone else here, is it George? I'm sorry, what your name is. But if there's even a single artwork we think is like, would be great in some place, it can go on a list of great someplace in the Capitol, not in this gallery, but it should go through this process. I think it should be seen as a body of material, and we shouldn't wait on other stuff just because of that. That is my opinion.
So Kristen, one of the things I see happening is we'll see the ranking of artwork, and then it's not going to identify for us immediately if that is just one piece. So I'm not sure I'm kind of just thinking about our time and getting work into the gallery, if that shouldn't be our priority right now. And then if the singular piece evaluations, if those could somehow be sorted out for another conversation, so that we're focusing on getting artwork into the gallery, but not losing sight of other works of art that would be individual. So we can go through all of it, but then is there a process to parse out the bodies of work for the gallery? Or as a group, should we just focus on the work that will fill the gallery, and then have another meeting very soon to talk about the individual pieces and where we could possibly integrate those into the legislative spaces? Christina Chang, your hand is up.
Thank you. It seems like once all the evaluations are in and things have been scored, couldn't they then get integrated into that spreadsheet and then resorted so that we could just remove the ones with the one work that weren't sufficient? So it would be like a next step, utilizing, the power of Excel to kind of help, so that like the works are all, given their pass, but then in the interest of time, we'll know that a certain subset of the really high scoring ones just won't be discussed because they are not large enough to fill the gallery, and those can be tabled then.
So I think the question is, does everyone feel they have the time to go through everything, or do we want to parse this out into 2 steps?
I'm for 2.
Because I do have to say, I mean, for Kristen, Christina, and myself, it's probably going to be faster work because we come at this from the curatorial lens already. And for others, it may not be fast work. And I want to really recognize that in order to make this an accessible process, that Kristen and Christina and I we're really driving this chain, and I'm trying to kind of make it approachable for everybody, because it's not everybody's professional lens. So I want to make sure that we're hearing from folks who really feel like dividing the work up into priorities right now or not. I'd really appreciate hearing from folks who are not professional curators and can come at this with some automaticity, because I want it to be approachable for everybody. It's a big list.
I'm for dividing.
I had gone through the set that Vic had sent about a month ago. And I found it be a really exciting time in my day. It was just very inspiring to see all the different works. The thought of rating all of them, or filling out the evaluation on all of them to the same level is a little bit intimidating. I would find it easier if there was permission, at least at this phase, to say, go ahead and evaluate the ones that jump out to you as ones you think should even be considered. And if you look at something and go, nope, that's not in the running, we can go back and evaluate those later or something like that, just to give the artist feedback if we feel that's important. Or just being given the set right now that's going to be big enough and doing those as a first round of evaluation and then going back to the others. I guess that to me makes the most sense, and helps us advance the goal of getting works into the gallery faster.
So one concern I have with evaluating our own individual top list is not, what do you say to the artists that only had one person evaluate their work, for instance? So I feel like, if I'm going to put this through the lens of having to speak to the newspaper and I'm the co-chair or chair, I think I'm the chair of this committee, I have to answer to that. And that would be really hard for me to answer to if I was asked the question. So why did this artist only have one committee member evaluate their work? So I feel like we need to make a commitment to go through the gallery ready bodies of work, which might be half the list, and then put aside the pieces for now that are not going to fill the gallery. And if you run across, the videos and you think, to Kristen's idea, that they could each be shown at the same time in the gallery, then evaluate them and be ready to sort of defend that. So I know, but I am hearing that, and I'm going to make an assumption that going through all 54 pieces or all 54 proposals is going to be daunting. And maybe if we can knock this down to half or close to 3/4, that might be more approachable for folks. And then we are working on things that are going into the third floor gallery, knowing that we're going to be evaluating everything, but just not all at the same time.
I think I can live with that.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know if I need to go through and say which, I mean, it's so hard to put a number on it. But I would say if this was sorted out and we had proposals with 1 or 2 pieces in the entire proposal, that we hold off on those, because I think it goes from 1 to 2 to 8, if I remember right, and then 9. And I think if those pieces are large enough, they would work to have 8 or 9 in the gallery. I just can't remember off the top of my head what size those proposed works fall into. But I would go through and look at the pieces that will fill the third floor gallery. And so I guess there's a couple timing questions, and we can cover the second timing question, which I think should go on an agenda so we don't lose it. But the first timing question is, how much time do we want to go through the proposals? And I know there's kind of a deadline for Victor. He has a deadline coming up. And then the second timing question is, what length of time are we going to have exhibitions in the gallery? How much turnover do we want in a year? We have a really good opportunity here to create some longevity on a schedule, and schedule these shows out for maybe a couple of years. We can talk about timing when we get back together. But Victor, timing for our evaluation submittals. When do you want those?
Well, it depends. I think what you want to set it at is don't pay any attention to my personal timing because I am retiring. But so some much more capable person will be filling my role, I'm sure, at some point. However, to get back to one of the things we were talking about earlier, when I sent a document over breaking the quantity of the pieces submitted into 3 groups. I had 3 different groups. One was 9 and below, one was between 10 and 25, and a third group was 25 pieces and over. And so you could, pick anything over 10 pieces, for example. 10 pieces, that would be an awful big room unless they were very large pieces, which we have not had proposals for. We have not had, that type of work submitted. I think our largest piece is probably 60 inches by 40 or something. So, but if you went by a quantity bigger than 10, that would reduce the initial screen that you all are going to do, and by about a third. And then you could evaluate the lower pieces, because you can take those fewer number of pieces and assemble them into some kind of a show, or find a place to put those as well later on. But getting back to timing again, it depends on how much time the members need. Remember, we have both ex officio members and we have appointed members, and it's really the appointed members that have the vote on these things, not the ex officio members. And so how much time the ex officio members need to evaluate these things, and there's quite a bit to go through. I mean, I would expect you guys to want 3 weeks or a month at least to do that.
So Victor, can I grab Kristen's question? Her hand is up here before we talk about that. Okay, Kristen.
Yeah, just regarding how many works of art people have proposed people don't know how many works of art can fit in this gallery. Artists don't usually have a very good sense about that. A lot of curators don't have a sense about that either. And frankly, these aren't full walls that are blank walls like in a museum gallery. There's windows, there's lots of windows, there's wainscoting. The amount of art that can fit in these galleries is either small, it can be smaller or larger than what has been proposed. So us evaluating it based on the number that some of these people put in. One photographer example, maybe they said, I have 10 photographs. But if we choose their work as an appropriate exhibition, and 20 will fit, some of these people can find 20 works that can go in. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that there is an ebb and flow in the amount of numbers that we're going to have to be considering with these proposals. So that's the problem with dividing it according to what they thought would be an appropriate number, because none of us know in some cases how many of these are actually going to be able to fit exactly in that space.
So one of the pieces I think we should talk about quick, and we're heading into the end of our meeting here, is early on in our conversation, I believe there was discussion about having to approve prior to exhibition every piece that's being installed, which is why we go through show us your proposed work. I believe there is some guideline about what actually gets installed. Like, we have to see what the body of work actually is. Am I off on that? Did I miss something? Like, if you propose work, that is the body of work. We're not adding to it. Is that correct? Or am I imagining that?
I think in some cases, and I can't recall which ones, but some folks proposed a larger number of works in the piece, but only sent a dozen or 6 samples of their works, because it's, you know, it's a 200 megabyte file now to put them all together. It's gets to be quite a, and I think you get they put it enough to give a sample of their work, but not every piece. If, however, the committee looks at that proposal and says, boy, this one's pretty swell, what else have they got? Then that conversation can begin with admin and bring that information to the committee again.
Because it is a very real, it's very real in our gallery experiences that an artist will submit to a call for art, and then when it comes time for their exhibition, they may have shifted the theme a little, or they've worked on some other pieces they want to include. So there's always an ebb and flow within our gallery experience. But I wasn't sure how much flex there was in this gallery as it's overseen by our state legislators.
Madam Chair, I don't think there's a requirement, but I think it's a question of somebody would want to be aware of what's in there before, in the event there are any questions or concerns that are raised. So I think it's just it's not written in any state statute or in any admin policy that you'd have to like lay eyes on it. I think it might just be a best practice.
So Victor, you had Christina, your hand is up.
So just regarding how much time the committee might need, and I appreciated your recognizing the differing sort of levels of facility of assessing work on the committee. Did you want, like I said, I didn't write like copious notes in my evaluations. I really just went by the scoring. Do you expect committee members to kind of justify in that comment section, or just is the numbering system sufficient to help guide any potential questions that may come up about reasoning for selection?
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, we're going to talk about these things anyway. And even if a piece of art doesn't come up in the scoring, I find value in folks bringing up something that may have been overlooked. Because again, the most important thing for me is to alleviate implicit bias. And so if we're looking at scoring and scoring alone, then that just contributes to bias. But if members in the group don't want to comment and they want to wait until we get together to talk about a piece that maybe didn't rise, or a body of work that didn't rise to the top with scoring, we need to leave that open, and we can certainly have more of an opportunity for those oral comments versus just written comments. So the written comment piece is not required. It's there. It's there for all of us to use, but it's not a requirement. Thanks for the question. Well, we're on the timing question. Back to Victor. How much time do we want to evaluate 2/3 of these submissions?
Yep, and you know, it's a commitment of time on the part of members, and you know, it's been 2 years, but honestly, I don't think so. There's no need to do anything hurriedly now. I mean, it's time's still kind of on our side, but you want to give the members of the committee, including the ones who haven't been able to make this meeting, to the opportunity to give these proposals the consideration that they deserve, and the evaluations that I'm hearing from all of you that you want to share with them. So with the artists, and so that's that is entirely up to this group, and those of us at admin can accommodate that.
So wrapping in one of my 4 topics is our next meeting, because maybe that will help us set a timeline for this. And if we're keeping to the original schedule of the second Monday of the month, that would be June 13th, would be our next regular meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So that would give us 4 weeks at this point. Or we should maybe say 3 weeks and then a week to gather that data on the admin side.
It will take some parsing on my part to go through all of that. Although not a week's worth. My hope would be able to keep up with it as it comes through. One of the reasons we went with the WUFU forms is that they naturally create spreadsheets out of these. What it doesn't do is the analytical part of it. That I'll have to dream up, come and share with all of you when I do. But I think that can be done. And but if you said a month and gave people told people that they had to get their submissions in by June 6th or June, I'm looking at a calendar here.
Well, how about if submissions were in? How about if submissions were in by June 3rd?
Yeah, you actually can go to June 5th, and the reason is that weekends for a lot of working people are the opportunity to, we didn't see many evaluations until this weekend because people had, the people took advantage. So June 5th would be fine. And then we'll put that in the, if that's agreeable to everybody, we would put that in the next meeting notices to get the evaluations into us by June 5th.
And then would you, once again, Victor, put together an email that would put the attachments and forms all in one spot for the members? Great. So I can't see everyone, so I'm not sure. I mean, is there like a reaction of a thumbs up if committee members could give a thumbs up to the June 5th deadline? That'd be great. I see Sue has her hand up. I can see if you do a thumbs up too, if you're in the, I have your chat open. So Sue.
I have just a very quick, it's both a governance and a process question. For those of us who are non-voting members of the committee, do you want us to be a part of the evaluation or not? I'm just wondering about whether it's worth our time to fill out the forms or be prepared to contribute to the next meeting, or whether you would like to focus that next meeting specifically on the members of the committee who are voting members.
I've given that some thought. That for non-voting members, I would suggest keeping collecting that information, but keeping it separate from that of voting members. And because part of the role for the non-voting members is the opportunity to share their insight with the voting members, and so I would collect that separately, and I would suggest collecting it separately and sharing it with the voting members. If
so Victor, Is there a separate form for the ex officio members?
No, I wouldn't do one. I can get it. I can get it because if they put their name in the form when they enter it.
Okay.
So I
So
can separate it that way.
you're welcome to use the form, but won't that be part of the data? Won't that become part of the data?
Yes, it would be.
Yeah, so we don't want you to fill out the form, correct, Vic? Don't fill out the form, but do be prepared to discuss the individual submissions. Is that what you're saying, Vic?
No, I mean, I think it's okay to fill out the form. It's just that it wouldn't, it's advisory. I mean, and
But
in fact,
then
also
it becomes,
advisory. But
but then
it
it
would
becomes
become-
part of the data.
It would
So the
become part of
question,
the data.
do we
And-
want that to be part of the data? Because if it's advisory, do we want that to be part of the data?
As one of the people who would be impacted this, I'm perfectly happy to be prepared to be part of the conversation next time, but not fill out the forms as Aaron had suggested.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would, yep, thanks, Sue. I would recommend that the forms be for the appointed members.
Okay. When I send out the email, I'm writing this down as I'm saying it, so I make sure to get it right. I will make that point that it's for voting members to fill out and not for the ex officio members. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay.
So I saw a couple in favor of the June 5th deadline. Should we go through the list and just give people on the phone a chance to say if that works for them or not?
Certainly. Hold on a moment. Cheyenne? Does that time frame work for you? She may not, she may have, and I think I saw one from Christina. Fred, does that time frame work out for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I have a lot of traveling and being in very important, busy things, and I'm just feeling it'd be good to submit a form so that if you couldn't be there, your job was done.
Okay. And I think those are the only ones I didn't get recorded.
Gita, were you able to share? She may be busy.
No, I wrote it in the chat. That deadline sounded good to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll go with the June 5th deadline, and our next meeting then will be on June 13th.
Okay, and I'll put that in an email out to everyone.
Okay.
Okay.
So that brings us to the close of the meeting. I don't know if there's anything left on the table as far as questions or discussion items.
This is Fred again. So that means all 55, we are going to do an evaluation in the June 5th deadline.
Thanks for that, Fred. No, we will go through the proposals that are ready for the third floor gallery. So anything that has 1 or 2, and then I think there's maybe an 8. We will reserve evaluating those for another meeting because those will need to go in other spaces.
Will you ask us to do that curation, or will Vic send us the list that's redacted, or?
I will send you a list that is separate from that. That will have the just the ones that are greater than 8 pieces.
Thank you.
Okay.
Merritt.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks to the committee. You know, this is ironing out the process at the beginning, but think it's really exciting that there's going to be this gallery in the long term to show art of the people of Minnesota at the Capitol. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the years ahead. Thanks.
Well, with that, do we need a motion and a second to adjourn? No? Okay. Well, thank you to everyone who is able to attend today. And Victor, will you be reaching out to the folks who were unable, just to kind of bring them up to speed? Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And gosh, I hope everybody just has a really great week this week. And thank you so much. This was a long meeting, so I appreciate you hanging in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.